Welcome to the Digital Exchange. Today, we're going back to where it all begins for myself and my guests. I'm joined by Michael LaFontaine to trace the evolution of surveying and digital transformation, dig into the challenges shaping the field today, and look ahead at the innovations defining the next era of spatial data and project delivery. Let's get into it. I know each week y'all hear me say I don't like somebody. Here's yet another one. Now, I do have a little bit more like for him than the others because, like myself, he got dragged into a profession. What's up, big dog?
Hey, what's going on, man? Like most surveyors, you come into it two ways, right? Got someone in the family, or it's the job of last resort.
You know what? That is so true because it was literally a last resort for me.
That's great. So my name is Michael LaFontaine, for all those that don't know. I'm currently with HNTB, and I'm a recovering surveyor where I'm focused on providing digital solutions to the AEC industry. And digital solutions meaning AI, digital twins, BIM, digital delivery, anything that we can do to help work faster and better and help evolve the profession. So I want to help really push the industry forward. And that's the reason I jumped into more of a technology role as of about a year and a half ago. Prior to that, my career for 18 years was surveying. I didn't really have a chance to get out of surveying or the construction industry. My dad, my grandpa, both general contractors, superintendents, worked for large firms, owned their own firm. So I was on the job site since I was 12 years old. The good thing about being on the site so young is I just got to see what's happening, the flows of people, how the projects are built. And I knew at a young age that, I wasn't going to be able to stray far from the construction industry. So I dabbled in some construction trades for a bit, did some carpentry, did some roofing, I stayed away from electrical. They wouldn't let me touch that. But I knew from an early age I was going to be in the industry. Originally went to school for architecture, soon to find out that once I graduated, I'd be drafting or modeling tract homes. And that didn't sound like fun. And then my cousin reached out to me. He worked for AECO at the time. And he says, "Hey, Mike, you ever hear about this surveying thing?" I go, "No, what's that?" He says, "It's pretty cool. You get to be in the field and you get to use your brain." I go, "Sign me up." I got into surveying in 2006 during the boom, and we'll get into it a bit, but that certainly shaped how I saw the industry and my perspective on it. Was those first couple years were pretty transformative. So then I spent 18 years in the survey industry on both the private side and 12 years on the owner side. And I think what's really cool about being on the owner side is it's not just about the project data. You're more concerned about the life cycle of that data because, as you know, you're going to be going back to that facility 2, 3, 4, 5 times in your career, and you want to have good data to go back. You don't want to recreate the wheel every time.
Wait a minute. Did you say 2006?
Yes, sir.
Man, look here. You just had to age me, didn't you?
It just comes out naturally.
We little kids, at 93. I'm probably going to age myself here, but 93, man, I was going through my pro days and man, I tore my quad. And so my uncle was like, "Hey, well, why you waiting on all that? Hey, just come work with me." And I said, "Well, what do you do?" He said, "I'm a land surveyor." I don't know I don't know what that is. And so we got in, I was like, "Okay, man, I'm gonna dive into it." Man, we drove to stake a pipeline and we parked in this little town called Big Lake, which is known for rattlesnakes. So he's like, "Get out." And I'm like, "In the woods?" He's like, "Yeah, get out." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not getting out of this truck." The company I was with hadn't introduced the total station. We were still on the theodolite reading the veneers with the top mounted EDM, or we were chaining, and when you start, I'm the rear chainman, so we'd be doing these sections during the pipeline. I'm yelling chain all day, chain, chain. So you can I guess you can kind of imagine where I'm at, morphing from such a very intense profession where, man, you fight in the field, man, it's rough. Um, Getting to where me and you are in a totally different environment where we
Hmm.
are. So you can imagine what I've seen change from using a older theodolite with a 20 seconds accurate, having to guess the minutes and seconds, putting on that top mounted EDM or chain, diving into total stations. There wasn't no 48s. They wasn't about to buy that. So, man, my 15C and all those guys, I still have that, by the way. So got on with DFW Airport. It was kind of blown away because I've never seen that much money spent on my profession. My registered surveyor, RPLS, he give you your papers here. There wasn't no instructions. You gotta go figure it out. So we are today is gonna be a pretty good conversation for me and you to dive into. What type of early experiences as you were learning surveying, knowing you were raised in a construction environment, what type of experience shaped how you think about the role of surveying as from then to where we are now?
No, that's a great question. It's bringing me back quite a bit. So think about '06. This is boom time. I mean, you couldn't find enough people to get into surveying. So I come into '06. I'm a chainman, don't know, you know, from a hole in the ground. And I come into the profession, and within a year and a half, we cycled through 3 party chiefs or crew chiefs. So good and bad. Good is that I got to see 3 different perspectives on how surveying is accomplished. Bad in that there was no stability and, you know, but the good thing that came out of this, within 18 months, my boss came to me and he says, "Hey, Mike, we can't find a crew chief. Are you ready to step up?" And I'm 18 months into the profession. And I said, "Sure thing, boss." And he goes, "Mike, we just bought this Trimble 5600 direct reflect. This is a robotic total station. It was state of the art at the time. It allowed you to, and I don't condone this, but it allowed you to survey with one person. So you'd have a tripod with the robotic total station, it'd track your prism. And we were doing a lot of public works projects at the time. So surveying a lot of roadways and bridges. So I was actually able to, go up the curb and the sidewalk lines and do all the surveying with one person. I would never condone that. I think you should have at least a 2-person crew. But the moral of the story is I was introduced to technology in the first year of my career. It's like, we don't have enough people to do the job. How are we going to fill that void? Okay, we'll come up with a new tool to help fill that void. And it was technology. And during that period of time, you saw robotic total stations really advanced. You saw terrestrial LiDAR scanners really advanced and how they progressed too. And you also saw the drafting tools, right? That's when Civil 3D became Civil 3D, I think was '09. So really, like I came into the career or into this profession, thrusted into technology. And it's like, you have to use these tools or you're not going to get the work done. A little different from what you saw, right? We weren't chaining at that point, but all my party chiefs came from that era. So I got to hear the horror stories.
Man, brother, I'm gonna tell you, when you brought up that robotic, I remember when they first introduced the geodometer. I don't know. I used to read the POB. That was kind of like our dream of all the equipment. But I remember when they introduced the geodometer as a robotic instrument, and man, we were blown away. But I'm looking now. I'm like, man, we've evolved so much. What tools or methods did you consider were foundational, and what did they what did we get right in surveying?
What did we get right? I mean, at the end of the day, let's just take a simple traverse, for example, right? You got to set your survey control. That's foundational to every project. Setting that survey control and traversing through it, it creates geometry and you got to prove out that geometry. So one method of doing that is the least squares adjustment, right? It proves out how accurate your survey control network is. So it doesn't matter the tools, anything that you use, at the end of the day, it boils down to how well did you turn those angles in the field? And here's a report to prove that out. And I think that's one thing that is really foundational. It's something that we got right was hey, we could prove our data. And if someone ever came back to us, whether it be further in the project life cycle during construction, and said, hey, your control's off. Well, here's my report that says that it was set and traversed correctly. Maybe it got bumped. Maybe there's another reason it's
Yeah.
off. But I think the ability to really measure well, prove that, and put our stamp on it, I think that's something that we got right. I think that's something that never can be taken away from the profession, no matter what technology is introduced. At the end of the day, we're establishing the location based on geodetic datums and whatnot for that project. Everything else has to fall and layer on top of that.
Do you think some of the new surveyors, that's all they know and they don't understand the compass rule adjustments and the things that needed for doing some of these scan to BIMs where you don't have all these connecting triangles and things like that? So do you think that they're kind of some of the old is kind of left out of the new guys to where they're not wasn't seeing what we saw back in the day?
Yeah, 100%. But it all depends on the mentor, right? Some of the mentors, that's just ingrained. That's what I taught the generation of the surveyors under me was how to analyze those traverses, when to use static GPS, when to use, traditional conventional survey methods. But is that being left out? Certainly. So when you started introducing RTK, everyone's
Oh,
like, this is magic. We called it
yeah,
the voodoo stick back in the
yeah.
day. How do we get a location? But a lot of people put too much trust in that without verifying. So that did create a new generation of surveyors where it's very much like, hey, it's telling me the location, the geoid, the ellipsoid are correct. I have enough satellites. This should be correct. Well, it's like, no, there has to be a check. What are you checking against? Whether it's a
Exactly.
known position, whether it's a static GPS that you're observing, whether it's traversing through it. So I think introducing these newer tools without the foundational elements of, back checking and verifying that you're correct has kind of developed a new breed of surveyor, which I would, this kind of pushing the limits here, but I would also say that now you start getting into UAV and reality capture, and they're not rooted in control. And they think maybe control is an RTK location without proving it out. That's where we start getting into a scary, territory with now you start designing off that data. Ooh, that gets real scary.
And it's funny you say that because I'm about to ask you, what do you think the roles are, the traditional roles of surveyors? I'm very thankful for my survey experience of where I'm at in technology on the digital transformation, digital twins, and all of that, because it allowed me to have more of that spatial knowledge of campuses and how things fit together and making sure they're aligned.
I think there's a couple of things you can never take away from the survey profession. Number one is the boundary survey, right? We are the only ones licensed in probably all 50 states to determine boundaries. There's a lot of history that goes into the boundary, process, the analysis process. That's what surveyors are very well trained in. The second is, like we talked about, survey control. What is the location on the earth? And I think surveyors are best equipped to dictate that and what level of accuracy you need. Well, who's going to determine that? As a civil engineer, as a GIS person? I mean, maybe, but we're the most equipped to determine that level of accuracy.
I want to ask you something right there because I want you to keep that thought, but I do want you to speak on sometimes real time is not really accurate on that. So some of these guys are scared to get out, pull out the level loops and run levels to this stuff to make sure that we are getting into that.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? There's so
Yeah.
much to talk about on the role that you said boundary and you said level of accuracy. I didn't mean to get you off that thought, but when you said that, I was like, man, I have to throw in that in order I get real time kinematic RTK, but based on how far you are from that base station, dude, you got to pop that level out.
100%. You got to know, and that's a great point, Robert. You got to know when to pull the level out and when not to. A great example when I worked for the county, on the owner side, we helped develop the standards for the county. And to achieve that 200s accuracy, our control, we had to level through it. There's there's no other way to do that. To get that level of accuracy, even with the robotic total station, You had to level through the control. You could not traverse through it just with the total station. It would not give you the accuracy for elevation. Surveyors help determine how much control should be set to meet those accuracy standards. And the owner dictates what the accuracy that they need.
One of the guys I'll get on later, and we both know him, a friend of mine, Matt Bird over at RCE, and yeah, him and his dad came out to do a project for us, and then we walked that terminal and we had some discussions, and I felt better about a 2 million square foot scan to BIM with people that I walk with. You and Adam came out to walk with me for a terminal. We were able to see the magnitude of what's needed for those. We won't do a job unless we walk it together and talk. What do you describe as the state of surveying right now? Because I've gotten proposals for guys for 2 million square feet ain't haven't even walked the site. And I'm like, how?
You know, it being out of surveying, I was in it day to day, up to about 18 months ago. It's a lot of the same where there's not enough people to do all the work. So sure, there's going to be corners cut in certain areas. You're going to have a level of responsiveness that you may not want. And then you're going to have a lot of unexperienced people coming in that don't maybe not have the experience of a terminal scan and understand the process. So they think it's similar to let's just say a lot survey. Oh yeah, it's just set in control and I'll go through. But it's not until you walk that site that you realize the magnitude, like you said. But what is the state of surveying? Control's been a little diluted. It's become real easy to survey. I mean, the equipment's made it very easy for us to locate building corners, terrain. So going back to kind of what I mentioned in the beginning, where's the checks? You got to have checks on your data, the geospatial data that you're delivering. What's it checked against?
You got the Navis scanner, you got the BLK to go, some of these more mobile scanners, right? You have guys now, if you have some points outside, they would rather not survey. They would hit that, start off, go in, do something, and come back to that monument. Those are the type of things where you're saying people are forgetting about control, and man, it exists. We want to do it fast. We want to get this money, get paid, go to the next job. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And on the owner's side, I can't let you be that way. I've been out of the surveying since 2017. I mean, I'm still intertwined. It's still a needed deal, but what type of technologies have the biggest impact on modern surveying?
That's a big and loaded question. So I will take it from the reality capture perspective. I think that's had the most impact. So, great example. When I worked for the county agency that I worked at, once it became so cost effective to capture the site with UAV for imagery and then with LiDAR with either terrestrial scanner, or we could walk the site with what you mentioned with the Navis, it became so cost effective. I go, guys, listen, we're going to do that for every project.
Yes. Yeah.
So what we would deliver was your traditional survey where we collect, hardscape features, let's say curb lines or abutments, key features that you needed to have extremely accurate. And then the rest we would capture with, LiDAR and imagery. And we would deliver that package to the designer. And I can't tell you the amount of just thank yous and wows I would get because they would have more context to the project they're designing, right? The one thing and kind of a impetus for this as well was trying to get the engineers used to working with point cloud data because at first they just didn't trust it. They didn't know how to work with it. Like, no, just give us our traditional break lines and we'll design from that.
Yeah.
So as I started slowly delivering these, we would actually deliver a web app and it would have your traditional survey with your CAD file. It would have the point cloud and it would have the imagery. And they loved it because they're able to zoom in, see features. And if something wasn't captured in our survey, they actually got to the point where they would, you know, capture that, or trace it out, extract it from the point cloud, typically non-critical items. So I think reality capture really opened the door to context to the site. And then that's led to other things. Wow, we can do all this other stuff with LiDAR data and imagery like machine learning, AI to run, change detection analysis. You're looking at, I'm sure you see it at DFW where you have the camera up on the sites and you're able to check, essentially progress of a construction
Yep.
project, which that's a very manual process even to today. So I think that's the reality captures really opened the doors. But as I said earlier, it's also opened the doors where it's put it in the hands of people that may not understand the background behind, hey, this should be geospatially located on the geodetic control. Is it can be layered with other data in the future that needs to be geospatially located on top of this? Let's start talking about survey controls.
Man, I tell you what, you just had to open that box because I have a project right now. There has been 10 different surveys out there, and you'd be amazed how many of them haven't tied into the same control to make sure that we're talking apples to apples. I'm not gonna say bust as we were taught to say. I'm gonna say variances
Being nice.
because yeah, now that we're on the more professional side, I want us to get out of our survey meets and bounds language, and I'm gonna say variance.
But real quick, I want to jump back to your previous question on some of the technologies that really help advance surveying. I'd be remiss, and Mark Goldman would be proud of me for saying GIS. GIS.
Don't get Mark started.
I have a great example of that. So 2015, the Survey 123 app, it was pretty new, but we worked really closely with our GIS team at the county agency I worked at. And, monuments was a big problem, just documenting monuments. So we said, hey, we got this tool, it's on a phone. Why don't we just take a picture of that monument and write a key description and condition of it? So we used this Survey 123. And within 5 to 6 years, we had 25,000 monuments throughout the county. Big database and so valuable. So what we would do is turn that over to the consultant surveyors when they're like, hey, we're on a project. Perfect. Here's the control. I'd send them the GIS web map. They were up and running, created so much efficiency. So, and then I even took it another level. Let's see what else we could get in there. So we started putting our projects within GIS, just the polygons of what we worked on. You could select that link. It would take you right to the DWG. So when we're working on the next phase of that project, we would have access to that information like that.
I have two guys that work for me, work under me that are GIS guys. When we do a drone flight or all the as-built stuff, the GIS program don't have to wait 2, 3, 4 years to begin their work on the utilities. We already have that in a means for them to use. So, dude, I'm 100% in agreement on you on the GIS, how that's helped us. Surveying, GIS, understanding the coordinate systems, making sure everything jives is a very huge thing on what we're using today. So, man, that was a good call out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's played such a great role. And we even built upon it further. We're talking about least squares adjustments earlier. So we built a script that would actually read our least square adjustment reports and it would draw it. So you would see exactly how that survey control network was traversed, which points were GPSed, and then we'd have the uncertainty, the accuracy level for each point. It was, I mean, GIS is awesome.
When I started hearing about least squares and all of what it was, man, it really opened my eyes to calculations, corrections, and things. In fact, I got a later show I'm gonna do with a buddy of mine named Jason from Leica, and we're gonna talk about some different modalities, real time, kinematic, static. I think there's still some misunderstanding. I can have 7 different units and perform static. They not understanding that with RTK, that one baseline. You're not getting 6 baselines. You hit that late squares, man, is something that I'm glad you brought that up because I remember struggling on that to where now it's such a big thing. And I wish people knew how much of those corrections least squares is doing for them. I know you're in a master's program for digital twins, and man, it's so much information. Where we are now, all this digital delivery and all of these acronyms and all of this stuff. The one thing that I learned is my background has rooted me to have a special skill set on the digital twin technology, digital delivery.
Think about surveyors like our profession, right? We're the first ones on the site, typically completing the boundary or topographic survey. and we're the last ones to leave, completing the as-built surveys. So we get to see the entire project life cycle from beginning to end. I didn't say asset life cycle, just project. And during that process of, 18 years being in that role, seeing this process, it allows us to see the deficiencies in that process. So we hand over our survey to design. Sometimes they can design in 3D, sometimes they can't. Then the surveyor receives the design, has to lay it out in the field. So there's a big drop in data there. And then we get to see the entire construction process. So me and you know that there's a lot of efficiencies that can be gained. And that's kind of like that's my mantra is I want to be able to work, better, smarter, faster, right? And when I saw these deficiencies in that project lifecycle, I go, come on, guys, there's got to be something better. And so that's when we started coming up with GIS. We were using reality capture since 2011, 2012. I've always wanted to find a more efficient way to do things. Me and you just, I know you've seen it. We've seen the ball drop so many times during that project life cycle and that asset life cycle. And I think it's getting to the point where it's mature enough to really start advancing the infrastructure industry.
Everybody wants to see the big, beautiful picture. Bad data can still give you a very pretty picture. You've been on the owner side. I'm on the owner side now. What type of things, as we dive into where we are, should owners require?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, requirements equal structured data that can be used for downstream effects. So everyone talks about AI, digital twins. Well, you're not getting there unless you have structured, organized data. And standards is a way of accomplishing that. To your point, when I was on the owner side, you always start with the end in mind. So if the owners can help remove any assumptions during the project life cycle and then ultimately feeding into their asset or their operational data, I think that's going to set owners up for success. And survey standards is a big component of that. So what we did at when I was with the county was we had a survey database. We would hand that over in GIS format. They could see all the survey control. We had survey standards that said the accuracy requirements. We even told them how to accomplish those accuracies. You turn an angle twice and double determine it. So I think laying it out as clearly as you can is going to set the owners up for success and really start leveraging these cool technologies that we keep talking about with AI and twins.
We've talked about, some early days. We've talked about some digital deliveries. We talked about some digital twins and reality capture, traverse, and things like that. If you had to fix one habit in this industry of surveying, what would that be?
I've been mentioning this to my fellow surveyors now that I'm on the architectural engineering, digital technology solution side of the house is surveying is a very small component in the bigger picture, right? If you can make the bigger picture more streamlined and function better, then you're providing more value to that project life cycle. So for example, you help develop the standards that are going to flow. Like when I'm out there collecting a light pole, hey, owner, do you have an asset database? Can I tie that unique identifier to my point as I'm collecting it? And that way now I have a digital thread. So that provides more value to the owner. Things like that. How can I provide more value to the entire project lifecycle? That's one point of advice I'd have to my fellow surveyors because we get stuck in the accuracies and who's setting what and where's the benchmark. It's a bigger picture. Technology's gotten so much easier. Just about anyone can turn on a total station now and kind of figure out how to use it and collect a point or two. But understanding the fundamentals, like what does it mean? But after a few months, you figured out pretty quick when you don't do a backside check and one of your legs got kicked out, and now you have a full day's worth of bad data.
Mike, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I always love having conversations with you. You're very insightful. I remember when we met a few years ago and I was like, this is gonna be a guy I can vibe with. I know I say I don't like you, but you are my brother from another mother. So and with that said, man, how can folks if they need to get in touch with you? I know you have LinkedIn. I mean, you on speed dial for me, but that ain't for everybody. So how you want these people to connect with you and kind of follow what you do?
Yeah, yeah, appreciate that, Robert. So best way is on LinkedIn, it's Michael LaFontaine. Pretty easy to find me. And I'm glad you brought that up, Robert. You know, we met 4 or 5 years ago at the BIM roundtable for aviation, and we hit it off at first, meeting and just jawing at each other. But I think the impetus for it really is we've had a lot of the similar experiences. We've
Yes.
been in the trenches, we've gotten gut punched. Um, but we've learned through those experiences and now we can bring that to this industry.
Mike, thank you so much, my man.
Hey, I'm ready for part two whenever you are.
Oh, yeah, it's coming. Thanks for joining me on the Digital Exchange. If today's conversation sparked something for you, share the episode with a colleague or someone in your network who's navigating these same challenges. If you are enjoying the show, consider following or subscribing so you never miss an episode. Next week, we're discussing drones in controlled airspace, airside to landside. We unpack the realities behind safe, repeatable, high value drone operations. Until then, keep building smart.